OpenAI is coming for the search market in a big way. This is not just ChatGPT search. This is a whole new way that they are doing it. They announced this, and it sort of fell right on top of when Google was announcing Gemini. So I don't know if it got lost or Gemini got lost. But the thing that's so impressive to me, Jaeden, about this is that now ChatGPT search is just going to be as if you were going to Google or Bing or something like that. There's no login, anything like that. So it's so funny because almost simultaneously, OpenAI was trying to become Google, and Google is almost trying to become OpenAI with Gemini. But the thing I wanted to get your take on, even though this is, I'm trying to figure out how big this is, because essentially, ChatGPT has a huge brand. I mean, basically, we call AI ChatGPT. We call large language models as the same way we call it Kleenex. We kind of call it ChatGPT. Do you think that OpenAI can start to grab this? Will people gravitate toward that? Because we literally call it Google. That feels like a big hurdle to me. But OpenAI clearly wants to own search. And then the second question I have for you is, what does this do to Perplexity? Perplexity is a phenomenal model that you can go to. And essentially, if OpenAI already does this, it feels like more people are going to do that. As big as Perplexity is getting, I don't know. Where do you take all this in your head?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I want to do for those that are unaware, I mean, yeah, obviously Perplexity is a fantastic tool. I think
Mm-hmm.
Perplexity might be the biggest one threatened by this,
Yeah.
just because, yeah, it's directly kind of doing what the Perplexity spin was on AI models. That being said, Perplexity I think has got a great brand. They're growing. I think both all ships, the tide raises all ships or something like that. I
Yeah.
don't think it's gonna really hurt Perplexity that bad. But just for those that are wondering what this actually looks like, if you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, so essentially in the chat bar, and like if I'm looking at using the O3 Mini High, whatever their newest greatest model, whatever. If you click the search button, so essentially it enables search. It does a couple interesting things. One interesting thing is it shows you the top trending things that are happening
Oh my
that day,
gosh.
which I'm trying to remember what website this reminds me of, but it feels like a massive throwback. The emoji, the icon they have next to it, it's like this chart thing going up, this trending thing looks like BuzzFeed to me. It
Yeah.
feels like an old Facebook trending news section. And also like the trending news on here, it's like really funny. It's like Josh Allen, Bill Becklick's
No,
girlfriend.
Belichick is the whole coach, Bill Belichick's girlfriend.
Yeah, NFL Awards 2025. So if you just click on one of those things, it's telling you what the top, the top things in the news are. And it's funny because I have this reasoning model enabled. So now it has to reason about the NFL awards in 2025. So while I wait for that to happen, I should have picked a faster model for a demo. It breaks down like everything happening in that news story. Now, this is something that's interesting to me, Connor, and I'm curious your take on it. I think it's pretty good. And the big news here is really that they dropped the login. So you don't need a login to actually get this. But this is something that I've seen you literally use Perplexity for. You find a
Yep.
topic, you
Yep.
drop it in, you ask it for bullet points. You have a whole prompt to ask you to give you an in-depth summary of this
Yep.
current event, and Perplexity does a great job. How are you thinking about this? Do you think this is a threat to how you use Perplexity?
I think it has to be. I mean, I think I'm comfortable with Perplexity, so I just go there. But you go out in the world. Do most people know Perplexity? No, not really. I mean, ChatGPT absolutely dwarfs Perplexity. Now, people who use Perplexity love Perplexity, and I'm just wondering, is this? I mean, I like the interface of Perplexity myself. I know some people don't really love it. And I think the other thing with Perplexity that I really love, which is sort of how you think about Jaeden has a company, AI Box as well, which is you get to choose the model. Now, for 99.9% of the people, they won't care. But I love using Claude as the output model because I like how it writes. But that's not that big a deal, I think. I think this has to be a huge threat to Perplexity. I don't want to get caught in this trap, Jaeden, of, well, I love this model, so it's clearly going to survive. I want to kind of get into the mindset of the billions of people that Google things every day. Even when Bing started integrating ChatGPT, remember back in early 2023, and we all thought, oh, well, this is Bing's moment to finally take on Google because it was going to be so much more powerful. I mean, by a long shot, right? All of a sudden, Google was just these stupid blue links, and Bing had ChatGPT 4, even when 4 came out, right? That was back in the day. Remember when you could only use 8, you only had 8 queries, all that sort of stuff, right? So However, in that moment, Bing only ended up capturing about 1% of what Google had. So I think Google had 93% of the search market. I think Bing ended up capturing 1% more, even with that incredible model, even with the power of Microsoft behind it. So the
Yep.
fact that people are using Perplexity kind of reminds me of those days where we had, Ask Jeeves and Netscape and Yahoo and all that kind of stuff. And Google comes along and very slowly steamrolls everything. I just think that with the ChatGPT brand, and ChatGPT has done amazing thing, which is owning the, again, like Kleenex or Band-Aid, or it's now the brand name that we associate with a large language model. We're still going to Google things because people are on Google. I don't think this is going to help Bing very much, but I'm thinking in terms of just sheer competition. There's some great other models out there, by the way, u.com. There's some great things out there. I just want to see how they survive. And one of the things I'm thinking about with Perplexity is, does this, Jaeden, to you, start answering or start giving reason to why Perplexity is going out there and like trying to merge with TikTok and create tasks and do all these things where I'm like, why is my search engine trying to do all that stuff? It just feels like Perplexity is playing in a very large ocean with some very big fish in there. But look, put yourself in the perspective, Jaeden. As you know, somebody who understands this stuff, you're building your own companies around this with AI box, everything else. For the average user, do you think that, what does this do to Perplexity? Because don't you think that if people understand that ChatGPT is just now a search engine as well, that
Yeah.
they have a brand issue here?
So here's the one thing I will say. You always harp on this, which is the UI. Perplexity, which by the way, Perplexity is already doing this without a login. If for those watching, like I'm on Perplexity, it's prompting me
Oh
to log
yeah,
in or sign
yeah,
up. Like I just ask a question and it gives me like a really good search engine type result with AI. It's got images and video stuff on the side. So I would say all in all, this like a 5-star. This is a very high quality result. It's got links, which are great. It's got all sorts of cool stuff. So love what Perplexity is doing here. Now, as far as trying to do mergers with TikTok, I think something like that is a genius move, akin to when Google bought YouTube. They're trying to buy a video platform to add in
right.
into a search engine. I've heard people call TikTok a search engine before, just for video, the same way YouTube is. So I think a merger like that actually
Yeah, that's
still
fair.
would
That's
make a
fair.
lot of sense. And at the end of the day, every one of these companies, if they want to survive, they have to follow the golden rule, which is how do they keep their edge? How do they keep their competitive advantage? And this is essentially what Perplexity is doing. They're reaching out for a lot of different angles. Now, the one thing I do want to say about OpenAI adding this is we saw some really interesting we saw some really interesting movement for OpenAI. It seemed like they'd run and hit a plateau on new user growth a while back.
Yep.
And it might have been 6 months, a year ago. I'm not exactly sure. They decided to make the decision to allow people to use ChatGPT without logging in. Before it was a search engine, just kind of asking questions. And even back then, people were saying that there is going to be the end of Google or whatever. The interesting thing for me, though, was that when they did that, they immediately saw a big spike in monthly active users, weekly active users, with people weren't having to log in. People just show up on their website for free and do it without any hassle. I suspect they're trying to do the exact same thing with search. While it's not that crazy of like of a new thing, Perplexity's doing it for a while. The fact that you don't have to log in drops one more barrier to entry for someone to choose to go use that. And I suspect doing this, they're going to pick up some tiny fraction percentage of Google's user
Hmm.
base, and they're just trying to grow their monthly active users because they're trying to allegedly looking at raising even more money. They're
Right.
spending hundreds of billions of dollars on data center projects. So I think that for them, it's about growth at all costs, and this is kind of the next move
I,
in their
I
in
I
their
think
strategy.
you're right. I think you're right. I think that, I mean, maybe they're just looking to get acquired at some point. Talking about Perplexity right now because they can't compete with everybody on the huge stage or in the big ocean here. I have heard that too from people much younger than me that they use TikTok as a search engine. So that's a great shout right there. But you're right. I think with Perplexity, people who use it will use it. But yeah, when you drop the logins, everything else. But here's the thing: OpenAI can burn through money. Perplexity, even though they have billions, they're valued at billions at this point, but they don't have billions to spend like a Google, OpenAI to just burn through things and say, "Hey, we're going to give this away for free." So that's my take on it. Jaden, I'm going to be so curious to see where this goes. Listen, guys, check out Perplexity if you haven't yet. Check out, just test out what ChatGPT as a search engine looks like and feels like. Check out what Google's doing when it's doing these AI overviews. Watch these things closely because they are all going to be competing with each other, and you do not have to just use Google for these things. Google, it will be awesome, but test them out. There's no login, anything like that. It's going to be awesome. And listen, again, this is AI applied, so we really encourage you to kind of get your hands dirty with all this stuff. And if you are willing, we would absolutely love it if you leaved a rating and review. Share your thoughts on this. Also, come back to us on LinkedIn, all our platforms. Tell us what you think. We would love to get your thoughts on this as well. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your day.